Nemesis. People love him, Brad hates him. Since the release of Resident Evil 3, he has become one of the most iconic enemies in Resident Evil series and gaming in general. But was he the first? Tyrant from Resident Evil 2, also known as Mr. X, you encounter in Scenario Bs of two story campaigns, had similar tricks. This seemingly unkillable monster would appear suddenly out of nowhere, and it looked like he was actually hunting you. But in reality, he was actually pretty simple. Nemesis, on the other hand, has more tricks up his sleeve. He will follow you, he won't give up until stars are gone. So, let's explore Nemesis a bit. First, let's talk about his attacks. I would actually add the damage numbers to each of the attacks he does, but unfortunately the international and Japanese versions of the game have different damage numbers. Same goes with the arrange or original difficulty modes. So instead I will just tell about the main things. So first thing is that his insta-kill tentacle attack grab will only kill you if you're in caution mode. Character will always automatically escape it if he's on fine, even if you don't push any buttons. But the grab does a small damage on its own, so don't relax unless you have max health when you get grabbed. He can only grab in his first form and only if he doesn't have rocket launcher equipped. Rocket launcher doesn't do more damage when he's punching, so his punches always do the same amount of damage. Rocket launcher is discarded after he shots it about 5 times. And during the last fight, during his first form in the clock tower courtyard, his rocket launcher will actually do a bit more damage when you fight him normally. Also, if his rocket launcher gets exploded, he gets more unique tentacle attacks during this fight. He can do his insta-kill grab at any point during his first form, so never get relaxed. During his second form, all of his attacks are focused on tentacles. His pull attack doesn't actually deal damage unless you get slightly grazed by it, then it does a little bit of damage. His thrust attack is only available when he's in damaged form during the treatment room fight. He can't do it before that. He will only slap you sideways or to the ground. His most dangerous attack in the second form, which he can actually do even if he's headless, is his tentacle slam grab. If he does 2 slams with 1 grab, it will deal more damage than half of your full health. And he will always try to do it if you have less than quarter of health left, because then it will be a fatality kill. His final form is the most chaotic one. He has lots of attacks and standing near him is very dangerous. All of his tentacles do damage, all of the acid that gets spit out of him, that he spits, or if it falls out of him when you damage him, even the little pulls on the ground do damage. In addition, he has the most damaging attack in the game if you stand directly behind him. This attack will take half of your full health if it connects, but it won't insta-kill you if you have less than half of your health at least. But the best course of action during the final fight is to stay away from him and dodge his spitting attacks. Because if you stand near, he can kill you very easily. And now for something completely Nemesis. What follows in the video after this point is the collection of different encounters you can have with Nemesis during the main game. I tried to show all the places Nemesis can follow you to from each encounter, and also show different attacks that he has during 3 forced fights with him. Before I leave you with Nemesis, I have a few things to add about him. First, as I've mentioned before, I wanted to show damages he does in the video itself, but there is a difference between the international Resident Evil version and Japanese Biohazard version. The same one as is between the range mode, which is the Resident Evil damage, and the original mode, which is the Japanese Biohazard damage. I will link to the damage chart of all the enemies, including Nemesis, in the video description. In addition, it will also have different interesting facts about the game and descriptions of how each attack works. So if you're curious about how the game actually works behind the scenes, do have a look. Second, while I do mention this in the chart as well, I still wanted to point out that the damage you deal to Nemesis during a single encounter is actually saved between rooms. So if you damage him, run away to another room, then decide to fight again, it doesn't mean you have wasted ammo before. This is true even if Nemesis hasn't followed you immediately and appears slightly later. It just has to be done during a single encounter. In each new encounter, he gets full HP. The only exception to this rule is the encounter you have with Carlos. While it looks like a single encounter between Carlos and Jill with one Nemesis, it's actually counted as 2. So the little damage you can do to him as Carlos isn't actually carried over to Jill fight. But if you do down him as Carlos, if he falls down to the ground, Nemesis will have less health when he fights Jill afterwards. It's just always a set amount of health he gets. I should also mention that if you're using PC version of the game, especially the original Resident Evil Biohazard version of the game that was released in Japan on PC, there is a special tool that allows you to show bosses' health and see where Nemesis will follow you or won't follow you. It's a tool that's often used by speedrunners actually, but I was using it just to see some neat things because, for example, boss's health is actually loaded in the game memory as you enter the room where he is, not when he appears. So even in encounters where you don't fight Nemesis and cannot fight Nemesis, like for example the life selection during the bridge before the chemical plant, it still loads his full HP in. Also interesting to note, and something you can't really see unless you use that tool, is that Nemesis' health is usually resistant to instant kill attacks. Same thing happens with Jill and Carlos actually, and the mercenaries. So rocket launcher is supposed to kill him in 2 hits, but instead it actually just gets him to 0 health and he still lives. So you still need to damage him one more time with absolutely any attack, then he will die. Before that, he will actually survive. Also, all of the environmental attacks do damage to him, but the damage differs between the thing that you use on him. So if you've seen before that, I've thrown a wood box on him and it just made him angrier. It actually damaged him, but it didn't do too much damage to actually take half his health. So the third thing is that Nemesis can actually lose you if you run far away from him, so to speak. If you evade him for several consecutive rooms and he loses track of you, he will just stop following you. The encounter will end. So you don't need to run to a specific room when he stops following you necessarily. You can just avoid him for several rooms. That said, sometimes it may look like you lost him, but he will literally fall from the sky out of nowhere in several locations because he's still following you. So don't just relax if you think that you've avoided him. Fourth thing is that during the encounter on the crossroads, basically where you get the battery and where you can go either to the gas station or to the tram, the one that you get right before you can escape on the cable car or tram, whatever you call it. During that encounter, Nemesis actually doesn't follow you anywhere. You can try to escape in any other place and he won't go. He will still wait you on that crossroads and you need to fight him there or just escape. Next thing is that during the tram ride fight, that fight is actually completely optional. It doesn't do anything. It's just a waste of ammo unless you have, you know, infinite ammo. You can die during that fight. There's no special cutscene that saves you, or if you just wait a long time or just survive a long time. There's nothing special happening. You can just run around him or do damage to him, but the same thing happens if you escape or if you just take him down to half health. You run away. So don't fight him there, it's just completely pointless. Another thing that you will also see in the video is that during the Carlos's fight with Nemesis, the AI Nemesis has is slightly bugged. Nemesis is supposed to start ignoring Carlos and go straight to Jill if Carlos evades him a certain amount of time. But if you try to do that during the Clock Tower main hall fight, Nemesis AI just gets buggy. He just starts, well, sliding towards the door. The animation itself gets buggy. He doesn't even walk, he just slides or floats above the ground towards the door and gets stuck there. And if you don't get close to him, you can actually deal damage to him and he won't aggro again. But if you get close, he gets unstuck and starts attacking you again. Supposedly he was planned to run away and just open the door off screen and go straight to Jill if you try to avoid him, but that doesn't happen, so you can actually use that trick to your advantage if you make him get stuck. That said, if you go one room closer to Jill, that is that huge dining room, if you avoid him for a bit of time, and again you will see it in the video, he will actually break down the door and try to go straight to Jill. If you let him break down the door, it's a special game over I've already shown before in a previous video, in one of the previous videos. But if he damages the door, the damage to the door actually stays both in the pre-render version of the room and the door loading screen. Again, that's something I will link to in the video description so you can check it out. It's a really weird fight and the probably most unique fight you get in the entire game. Also, most people might not notice it or know it, but during the treatment room fight with Nemesis, where you can damage him with acid spray, or just with weapons, the damage between acid sprays and weapons, I think I've mentioned that before, is actually completely separate. Acid spray damage is essentially cutscene damage, it's not health damage to him. So when you damage him via the acid spray, it actually puts him down to the next stage of the fight. First he loses his hand, then he loses his head, and then he dies if you damage him with acid spray 3 times. But next, every stage changes his attacks a bit. So for example, when he loses his hand first, he gets the tentacle thrust attack back, the one that he used during the clock tower courtyard fight, if Carlos explodes his rocket launcher. And when he loses his head, he can still very much kill you, actually, and he uses all of these same attacks that he does during the second stage. The only exception is that he can't see you or hear you, and he has no idea what's going on, he just attacks blindly. But he attacks really fast and really chaotic, so he can pretty much just lock you down in the corner of the room. That said, if you just run away from him far away, he won't know where you are and you can safely kill him. But since the damage from acid sprays isn't the real damage, if you start just attacking him with weapons, you'll be wasting ammo. So plan ahead. If you don't have enough ammo, you probably should think if you want to damage him via the cutscene damage or via the actual damage before the fight starts. And finally, the trick to the final fight with Nemesis is that his health actually doesn't go beyond a certain threshold unless that damage comes from the railgun. So if you damage him with weapons, he goes to around 100 points of health, and after that you cannot damage him at all. Only railgun can kill him. That's why you can't kill him with weapons from the technical perspective. The full damage can come from railgun itself. You can just, as I think I've shown in one of the playthroughs, railgun itself can kill him, it just will take several shots. But if you take him down to a certain amount of health, one railgun shot will kill him. The only trick is that the very first railgun shot will never damage you or kill him, it's just impossible, it only damages the location you're in. So that's kind of the trick to him. So yeah, that's about it. Enjoy the rest of Nemesis encounters and see you in the next video, which will be about the final full game playthrough but with infinite weapons. I will be talking about the game development itself of Resident Evil 3 and different interviews which I've stumbled upon and different things that I've read and learned about the game which are interesting. And after that there will be only the last video and we'll be done with this Let's Play, even though I planned it to be much faster. And it has taken quite a few months already to finish it. So anyways, thanks for watching and see you next time.
Star.